God tells
Come on. This is Joy News at 8 with me, Gifty Ando Apia. In the headlines tonight, NDP describes the just-ended presidential and parliamentary elections as 419. The NDP says the election was rigged. Now, Voter Waiver Authority says an average of $2.5 million a day is spent on the generation of power to last 20 days instead of 90 days. Now, 3 old women in Tamale stand the chance of being banished from the metropolis by the Tamale Dakpemana. They are facing witchcraft accusations. The year-on-year producer price index for November 2012 has decreased by 3.3 percentage points as compared to November 2011, relative to the revised rate recorded in October 2012. So those are the headlines. We bring you all those, some sports and showbiz. Please stay with us. Right, so let's deal with the details of those stories now. Nana Akufo-Addo Rawlings' National Democratic Party, the NDP, has described the just-ended presidential and parliamentary elections as 419. The party cited several allegations of fraud and vote rigging, especially against its parliamentary candidate, as reasons for the allegations, noting that the results of the elections did not reflect the will of the people of Ghana. They, however, indicated they will not contest the election result in court, but rather called for reforms in the operational structure of the Electoral Commission to address.
Flag bearer Nana Akufo-Addo Rawlings, together with party chairman Dr. Josiah Aye and other leading members of the party, were present at the press conference to register their concerns about allegations of fraud and vote rigging in the just-ended elections.
During the elections, there were many irregularities, and we in the NDP were not spared electoral injustice and the gradual destruction of our democracy. In the Ketu South constituency of the Volta region, for example, our parliamentary candidate had personally counted the results of all the polling stations except 3 and had well over 1,000 votes, only for our candidate to be told that he had only 200 votes. The outcome of our own internal auditing of the election results shows an unhealthy pattern in the collation of figures in several constituencies across the country. This must never be allowed to recur.
According to the NDP, the 2012 elections did not reflect the will of the Ghanaian people, alleging that the conscience of Ghanaians was bought.
During this election, we must emphasize the limited knowledge of many of the electorate was exploited with massive monetization and monetary enticement in the form of vote buying and gifts of various sorts. Ghana's democracy will gradually becoming one for the rich and not for the masses, nor for the expression of the genuine will of the people, and this must stop before our democracy deteriorates any further. Why should we sell our sovereignty for a pittance? The will of the people must never be compromised.
But despite these allegations, the NDP said it was not ready to challenge the election results in court.
But I must say that we are not a party that wishes that any time we go to election, we should go to court to have things resolved. We want to build our democracy to such a point that when election results are announced, because we have integrity in the system and we have seen the system operate honestly and above board, no Ghanaian would even think of going to court. But that is a challenge to not just the Electoral Commission, but to all of us to ensure that these things happen. Of course, we hope that is only a hiccup, and as we go through our paces, all these things will be ironed out, and then we'll have elections that we can all trust and believe in.
They also called on the Electoral Commission to be humble enough to accept its problems of mismanagement and go ahead to carry out major reforms that would ensure the integrity of the biometric voter register system. Flag bearer Nana Akufo-Addo Agyeman-Rawlings, when asked whether she would lead the NDP in the 2016 elections, had this response.
I think that we all know that the elections were just a week and a half ago, and we are dealing with substantive issues that happened during the election. Allow us to do that.
The NDP believes the outcome of the elections still hangs in the balance, but called on Ghanaians to be peace-loving and law-abiding.
Well, with reports about lobbying for positions in the new government, some members of the Council of State have indicated a desire for another term. This was revealed at the last meeting of the Council, at which President John Mahama was present. The meeting, which was held behind closed doors, was expected to review activities of the Council over the 4-year period and discuss other issues of national interest. A frank and rigorous discussion of post-election violence clashes and appointments are expected to be top of the list of discussions.
The Council of State is a constitutional provision to offer advisory services to the President and other members of government. The 24-member council was sworn in by former President John Evans Atta Mills 2 months after the NDC was ushered into office in 2009. At the meeting held at the Pedrasi Lodge, Chairman of the Council, Professor Kofi Awuno, debunked the notion that the council did little during its tenure.
Someone yesterday suggested that it was this kind of meetings are tea parties. I disagree. We need this interchange between the presidency and the council, which is also a constitutional body, as regularly as possible. This system of this country was not the preserve of one person. I have been asked to indicate to you that some of us may still be interested in continuing, but some are tired, some are old.
He adds, although the Constitution requires of them to meet at least 4 times yearly, they met almost every month to deliberate on matters of national interest. The Council presented what it calls a compendium of memos of its work during its tenure of office. President John Dramani Mahama said the Council's existence is a deliberate attempt by drafters of the 1992 Constitution for a frank and uncensored advice to the presidency. He said he submits himself to the good counsel of the Council of State.
I wish to thank you for the reports that you have produced. These will give a better insight into the work that the Council does. And I'm sure that after they read these reports, they will realize that it is not at all a retirement position. It is a position of active service.
President Mahama commended them and the entire nation for peaceful elections.
Let me also congratulate all of us for a peaceful and successful election. It is an election that we can all be proud of, despite the difficulties some people are having with accepting its results. The campaign was peaceful compared to other elections, campaigns that we have had, non-violent. An election day itself passed very peacefully, even with our experimentation of a new biometric system.
He said he looked forward to the same frankness in his discussions with the Council.
While appearing before the sole commissioner at the judgment day sitting today was the Executive Secretary of the Lands Commission, Dr. Wilfred Kwame Enimodami. He presented documents covering compensations made from 1992 to date. Unlike the 2 previous sittings, today's was an engaging encounter between Justice Yao Appeal and the witness as he helped clarify some pressing issues that will aid investigations.
Mr. Odame explains to the Commissioner processes involved in acquiring land and land evaluation processes that determines who is eligible to be compensated after they are asked to vacate a catchment.
When they put in a request for that land, the Assembly will compose a committee known as the Site Advisory Committee. The composition of this committee is in response to the provisions under LI 230. It requires that the Assembly should get representation from the Ghana Water Company, Electricity Corporation, the Ghana Postal, all utility companies, the Lands Commission with its 4 divisions, and other related bodies such as urban rules, highways, depending on their request for the land. This committee will inspect a site, conduct a survey of it, do an initial enumeration of the composition of crops, structures, and buildings, and then take it through its proceedings. And then also, the member from the Environmental Protection Agency has to confirm that in view of the request for that land, the land can be suitably used for the purpose.
Justice Apau asked for more clarification when it comes to land given out by traditional rulers for a specific cause.
Now, do you have documentation of lands that were not compulsorily acquired as such, but that were, say, gifted, maybe by the schools, for, like secondary schools, establishment of schools, hospitals? Do you have the list, something to show that this particular land on, say, Tobadom Secondary School or Wanji Secondary School was a gift from the school? It wasn't compulsory acquired. To avoid a situation where people will come in later to claim, compensation. Do you have anything like that?
By way of a gift, a lease, or whatever description you want to give to that transaction, those do not come under our purview as compulsory acquisition.
Okay. So you, as the commission, you have nothing to do with such lands?
We will help the MDAs to do the paperwork. To transfer title from the family, from the school, to the government body, and then register it for the government body. But in such cases, there's no consideration.
However, since his supporting documents were not presented in full, he is up to close of January to submit them to the Commission. Sitting resumes on 7th January next year.
And so on goes the heat of the judgment debt. In the meanwhile, the counsel for the Judgment Debt Commission, Barrister Dometi Kofi Sokbo, told Joy News the Commission has been able to gather over 80% of the needed documents to pursue and investigate the payment of settlement debt and compensations. He admits the last 2 sessions were insignificant, but that the Commission is almost ready to pursue the cases in detail. He spoke to Walalam Johnson again.
We have actually gotten at least 80 to 85% of the documents that we want. Yes, we are going to study these documents thoroughly and then invite the persons and institutions who produce those documents before the Commission and examine them on specific issues.
And it's obvious in the last 2 sittings, people that turn up didn't really come up with the documents that you needed. How sure are you that they're going to make these available in time so that your work can be facilitated in time?
No, in fact, almost invariably, all the persons and institutions that have appeared before us have come with some documents. They did not come without documents at all. They came with documents, and we have found the documents very useful. But what we are doing is that we will be giving enough notice to them to make sure that they get at least, if not all the documents, some of them before they come. And when they come, because they have been very cooperative so far, we would give them some time. We ask them how much time they want, and they are able to give us an idea of that. We ask them to go and then work around that time and then bring them. Ask them, after we have studied the documents, we will ask them specific questions on specific issues on those documents, all related to, the bottom line, judgment debts, in respect of which payment have been made from the consolidated fund.
In the last 2 sittings, I think the first one lasted for only 20 minutes, and yesterday's lasted for only 15 minutes. So maybe viewers of our channels might be disappointed somehow.
Oh no, but I can tell you as a fact, even though those sittings lasted for a few minutes, we still have some documents which are very relevant to what we are really doing here as far as the Commission is concerned.
So we are at it.
Oh, we are at it. We are on course.
Thank you.
We are on course. Okay.
They have documents, he says. The head of the Aid and Debt Unit at the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning, Yvonne Kwanzaa, has denied receiving bribes from any of the companies involved in securing the Can 2008 Stadium project. She said this when she appeared in court as a prosecution witness in the case involving the payment of 51 million Ghana cedis as judgment debt to Mr. Alfred Woyome.
The trial resumed on Wednesday after initially being adjourned on the 28th of November 2012 because the prosecution in the case could not produce witnesses to testify for it. The court adjourned the case at the instance of the prosecution. A Chief State Attorney, Yvonne Kwanzaa, announced to the court that the state could not bring a witness to testify, as had been expected, as a result of circumstances beyond its control. Alfred Woyome is facing 2 counts of defrauding by false pretense and causing financial loss to the state. So far, 3 prosecution witnesses have testified in the matter. They are the Deputy Head of the Legal Department of the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning, Mangowa Ghani, a former Minister of Finance, Yao Safo, and a former Deputy Minister of Finance, Kwejima Menu. The accused, who has denied any wrongdoing, is alleged to have made fraudulent claims to the government, resulting in the payment of 51.2 million Ghana cedis to him. The Financial Division of the Accra Fast Track High Court, presided over by Justice Ajet Nassam, has meanwhile adjourned the case to January 15.
And we're still in the legal system, and more Ghanaians are losing confidence in the ability of the courts to dispense justice as a result of frequent delays in case adjudication in the rising cost of hiring lawyers. A draft report of a study commissioned by the Attorney General and Minister of Justice has shown 72% of respondents sampled in the survey said although they have knowledge of the formal justice system, they were challenged by the delays and frequent adjournment of proceedings and the cost of initiating a legal process, including hiring a lawyer.
The Attorney General has not caused any report to be published. What we have is that a baseline survey based on a UNDC project in which consultants were appointed. The consultants carried out the baseline survey on a number of thematic areas, which included the confidence of the public in the justice system. The Attorney General's Department had no way of framing the terms of reference for that. And so when the baseline results then came to a workshop to be validated, the AG was invited to come and open the workshop. Now, if you look at the statement that was made by the Attorney General there and given to the press, nowhere did the Attorney General attempt to evaluate the report and the findings of the researchers. I went and opened it and left. When they finished and came out with their draft report, and it had to be adopted by the stakeholders at the validation workshop, I was invited again just to come and open it. In fact, I did not even sit through the presentation of the report because that's not part of my work. If any researcher and anybody who understands how research processes are, particularly commissioned research, the stakeholders finish, they validate it and hand it over to those who commission the research. And it is part of a wider justice sector intervention. When those who have commissioned this research then refer it to the Attorney General's Department and other stakeholders, we are not even in a position in Attorney General to sit down and take a decision. It will have to involve government, that these are the findings of the justice sector. Cabinet will have to take a decision on that matter. And we might even decide whether we agree with the findings or we do not agree with the findings. So where do the Attorney General come in at this stage to be asking questions on whether the research makes sense, it doesn't make sense? That is not my role.
So that was the Attorney General, Mr. Benjamin Kumbo, on Top Story with Evans Mensah. Now, a 90% majority of the respondents in that survey rated the system as highly corrupt, while out of that figure, 70% claimed to have paid bribes to officials in the justice sector for services rendered. We'll take a short break, but before we go, a Geological Survey Department has recorded 20 earthquake report across the country between October and December this year. We return with some more details. Please don't go away. You're welcome back. Let's go straight to Parliament today. Now, Parliament today adopted the report of the Special Committee on Poverty Reduction Strategy on the 2010 Annual Progress Report on the implementation of the Ghana Shared Growth and Development 2010 to 2013.
The Annual Progress Report on the implementation of the Ghana Shared Growth and Development Agenda, GSGDA, is the first item on the assessment of the progress in the implementation of policies and programs outlined in the successor to the Ghana Poverty Reduction Strategy 2, GPRS2. The committee observed that economic performance as measured by growth in real GDP increased from 4% in 2009 to 7.7% in 2010, exceeding the 6.5% target set under the 2010 budget statement. This significant achievement was mainly driven by the growth in the service sector with 9.8% as compared to the agriculture and industry, which recorded 5.3% and 5.6% respectively. The highest output growth was observed in information and communication, which recorded substantial increases in growth of 24.5%. Out of the 315 indicators assessed, 56.5% either achieved their targets or made steady progress. 23.8% of the indicators did not achieve their targets, and data was not available for 19.7% of the indicators. The committee recommended necessary mechanisms be put in place to improve the impact of policies and programs contained in the GSGDA in ensuing years to sustain the gains made in the GPRS 1 and 2 and to also attain medium-term objectives of the country. Some MPs believe the adoption and subsequent passage of the report will benefit their constituents.
In the Eastern Corridor Road, for example, Salga Pandai, Salga Bimbila, this joined the main Eastern Corridor Road of Hohoi, Jaskan, Damako, coming to Bimbila, and then through Yendi to Zabzugu Tatale to the North Togo. When this is a link up with the Bimbila and the Kwanda Road, then there's no need most of them passing through there, the shortest to pass through there. And that's why I am saying that, as far as I'm concerned, the passing of that bill and the poverty reduction loan that has been taken has a direct effect in helping the people of Salaga, excuse me to say, to achieve the employment that we are looking for. That will consequently reduce poverty in that area.
Sitting continues tomorrow.
Residents of Block 8 of the Tema Community 5 SNIT flat are appealing to President John Dramani Mahama to compel the Social Security and National Insurance Trust SNIT to take urgent steps to renovate their flats before disaster strikes. Residents of Block 8 say they've been living in anxiety since they identified deep cracks in their rooms and other parts of the block.
Speaking to Joy News, Chairman of the Block 6 to 8 Residents Association, James Kwanzaa, expressed disappointment that SNIT has not contacted them after they formally wrote to inform their landlords of the deterioration of Block 8 on several occasions.
I heard that they came around with some engineers to inspect the area after the publication. They came around, but I won't say they've contacted me because I have not got any communication from them as to the reply to our letter that we sent them. So we're just waiting. We don't know what is happening.
He said residents of the 17-year-old three-story building live in constant fear for their lives.
We ran to the press after the incident that happened in Achimota because we were gripped by fear. The children were not staying. Crying, they won't come to the flat and all those things. Because if you come to my room right now, the cracks in the room, and I'm at the far end on the second floor. And even when a private car is passing behind the block, you feel the block shaking. And with that specific block, Block 8, from the onset, immediately we settled in the block, we saw that crack. And we called their attention that there's a crack in the building. And now the crack is very wide now.
He indicated they have run out of options and may take legal action if it becomes necessary. But before they explore other options of compelling SNIT to renovate the building, residents will appreciate an intervention by the President, John Dramani Mahama.
We appeal to the President and the Minister in charge of that sector to press on SNIT to take action on this. They shouldn't wait till people die when the block has collapsed on us before they will bring in people to come and remove us and then give somebody promotion for brevity or something for removing people. We are appealing to the government and especially the minister of that sector.
The block, which has 16 apartments, is home to some 53 persons.
So in an earlier interview this afternoon on our midday brief, Eva Amegashi, head of corporate affairs at SNIT, promised that the renovation work has been given on contract and work will begin soon. We hope it really begins soon because cracks are indeed dangerous. Now, the Geological Survey Department has recorded 20 tremors across the country between October and December this year, with the highest magnitude being 4.6. Even today, the Bonafo witnessed an earth tremor. Now we have the director of the Geological Survey Department, John Ejedodu, who joins us to talk about earthquakes and tremors. Hello, good evening. Welcome to Joy News at 8.
Thank you, madam.
So tell us, I understand your department has recorded this 20 tremors within October and December. Now, how disturbing is this phenomenon?
Well, thank you. Tremors for education, public education, we will say that they are baby earthquakes.
Okay.
When magnitudes of 1 to 4.9 or 5 are recorded, we term them as tremors. And when they are above 5, we call them quakes. Today's tremor is a little bit interesting because it fell outside the known earthquake-prone zones.
Okay.
This has been made known as a result of the installation of our new digital system.
Okay.
The manual one or the analog one wouldn't have been able to pick with such a small difference.
Now, how serious was the tremor that you say happened in Bonafo? How serious was it?
It was not serious at all because the magnitude was about 1.9.
Okay.
And it will be felt in some very few areas, especially around the epicenter. So it did not cause any harm at all.
So I don't know, were there any, it wasn't serious, but if it was felt in a few areas, what did the people in those few areas, what are they expected to see?
Well, they can feel it like as if a vehicle has moved from a little bit longer distance. Yes. But what I have to say is that almost all the 20 tremors recorded are outside the known, earthquake-prone areas. The reason may be that we are now getting new improvements of our equipment, or they were occurring, but because we did not have the requisite equipment to track them or to locate them, they were just off record. So we are still studying them, and I think that our equipment, since the trial for the past 2.5 months, have shown that, in fact, the reason why we bought them.
It means that we're making a headway. Now we have gadgets that could actually detect. But
surely.
Should we worry? Should we worry that we are picking up these signals in all these other places? In
actual fact, it is good that we know the trend now.
Okay.
And we shall get to know more because the data which will be collected or accumulated will help us in our seismic research, our orientation, a different beginning, and the way we perceive earthquake, in the country.
Now, earlier on, some time ago, we heard there were rumors that there was going to be an earthquake, and everybody rushed outside their rooms and everything. We know that it's not predictable. Earthquakes are not predictable, although we can study the trend and know that it could happen here and here. Which areas in Ghana can we say are earthquake prone?
Thank you. First of all, it was very unfortunate for that house. I believe that that person who spread the message knew that at that time the installation has not been carried out, and probably he wanted to make some capital gains out of it. Nobody knows. But if the installation had been completed, no one would have dared make that statement. It was very unfortunate, and there was no need for such a thing, and we believe that it will not be repeated. However, we have certain areas in the country which are well known, like from Nyanyano, Accra is part of it, Akosombo is part of it, Tama is part of it, Ho is also part of it. When we say it's fall within the zone is not a line. It's a broad area, broader area, and therefore we look forward to mapping these areas in details in order to use the data for land use planning.
So what your department now is doing is you say you commissioned something today?
Yes.
So what exactly was that?
Yes, we commissioned the observatory and the whole system. The system is Ghana Digital Seismic network.
Okay.
It's not the manual one. The manual one is a cake,
Okay.
but now we are moving on to a new system.
Right.
And it was commissioned by the minister on behalf of the president today.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. From the Geological Survey Department, I have had John J. Dodu talking to us about tremors, indeed explaining to us the areas that are earthquake prone and how his department are working towards it. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. Now, let's move on with some other stories. The Central Regional Police Commander, COP Stephen Ando Kofi, has asked people in the region to continue to be law-abiding. According to the regional commander, his outfit has had no complaints as a result of the December elections, describing the region as very calm. However, he was quick to add that the police will deal fairly and efficiently when it receives any election-related complaints and will deal with it according to the laws of the land.
The fact that Xmas is coming, it doesn't mean the laws of the country have been put aside. We still have the Criminal Offences Act as our guide. Any individual or group of persons who decide to go contrary to it will deal with it in accordance with the law. Continue to be law-abiding as Xmas approaches. And they should take their time to celebrate. For now, we have had no complaints about some Violence Act as a result of celebrations of the December elections. No. But we promise that as and when complaints are received, we will deal with them according to the laws of the land.
So away from the central region, let's go straight to the northern region. 3 old women in Tamale stand the chance of being banished from the metropolis by the Tamale Dakbemana after it emerged from a shrine that the 3 old women are linked to the bad health condition of a young lady. A young lady in her mid-20s, accompanied by her relatives, reported to the chief of Tamale Dakbema Na Mahamadu Al-Hassan Dawuni a case of how her own mother has been attempting to kill her spiritually in connivance with other women. Upon hearing the incident, the Dakbema Na summoned the alleged witches to his palace for interrogation and later sent to a shrine to confirm whether indeed they were witches who possessed the alleged spiritual powers. At the shrine, out of the total of 5 old women, 3 were confirmed to be witches by the shrine leader and linked to the bad health of the young lady. This provoked the anger of residents of the area who attempted to lynch the women. However, they were rescued by subjects of the Dakbaimana, who then confined them in a room with the young lady and gave them 72 hours to restore the young lady's health. By the custom and traditions of Dagbon, if someone is accused of witchcraft and linked to the death or bad health of a person, it first has to be reported to the chief of the area. The chief will then summon the victim and the accuser for interrogation before being sent to the shrine of the spiritual chief of the area for spiritual consultation. The spiritualist does the confirmation by holding 2 brooms over the head of the accuser while reciting incantations and appellations to the gods. Well, surprisingly, when the 2 brooms held over the head of the victim is crossed at the neck and remains crossed without any effort from anyone, it is confirmation that the accuser is indeed a witch. Well, so how do we balance the spirituality and the human rights aspects of everything? We've been talking to our friends on our social media platforms, and they have some views. We'll share that with you when we return from this break. Okay, so we'll bring you the social media platform messages later on, but time now for business reports. And the year-on-year producer price index for November 2012 has decreased by 3.3 percentage points as compared to November 2011, relative to the revised rate recorded in October 2012. The monthly change rate also recorded negative 0.4% in November 2012.
In November 2012, the producer price inflation in the mining and quarrying subsector decreased by 11.2 percentage points over the October 2012 rate of 30.8% to record 19.6%. Manufacturing, which constitutes more than 2/3 of the total industry, decreased to 18.9% from a rate of 21.5% in October. But the utilities subsector remained unchanged. During the last 12 months, the producer price inflation in the petroleum industry exhibited a downward trend. The highest rate in the industry was recorded in November 2011 with 26.5% and the lowest in May 2012 with 16%. The monthly changes in the producer price index indicated that mining and quarrying recorded a negative inflation rate. How does this affect the consumer?
There are certain items that the consumer uses that would really affect the expenditure on those items. And we are looking at the manufacture of food, manufacture of textiles, manufacture of footwear, and so on. So those are the things that will really affect the consumer. So for these items, if the prices have gone up, then obviously the consumer will have to spend more.
No change was recorded in the manufacturing and utilities subsectors.
The Ghana Food and Drug Board has cautioned the consuming public to desist from patronizing unwholesome products during this Yuletide.
Have you wondered what the consumption of expired food would do to your body? Well, the need for ensuring public health and safety is paramount this festive season. Hence, the need for everyone to get involved in promoting food safety. According to the head of Food and Safety Management Department of the Ghana Food and Drugs Authority, FDA, Maria Abalovelace Johnson, maintaining food and safety is a shared responsibility.
For the consumers, food safety is a collective responsibility. Yes, the taxpayer pays the staff of Food and Drugs Authority to ensure that food is safe, to ensure public health and safety. We are doing our very best. We are everywhere doing all we have to do, educating public, doing it. But what we want them to know is that whenever they are eating any food, they have to ensure that it is labeled in English so that they can even read what is there.
It therefore behoves on consumers, retailers and wholesalers to collaborate efforts with the Ghana Food and Drug Authority to ensure food safety at all costs this Christmas season.
As the Yuletide season, people will be going out to party, all sorts of restaurants, eateries and all. What they should be looking out for is the food hygiene permit by the Food and Drugs Authority. This time, it was issued before we were made an authority, so it will have Food and Drugs Board on it. The food hygiene permit. Every restaurant they will be going to, every hotel, wherever, they should be looking out for the food hygiene permit.
The Ghana Food and Drugs Authority, under the Public Health Act, is poised to deal with everyone caught selling unwholesome food to the public.
Let's do some energy now. According to the Volta River Authority, an average of $2.5 million a day is spent on the generation of power to last for 20 days instead of 90. The amount is for the purchase of light crude to generate power due to the lack of gas from the West African gas pipeline. I'm joined on the line by Sam Fletcher, who is head of corporate affairs with the VRA, to discuss this cost-intensive power generation. Hello, Mr. Sam. Good evening.
Good evening.
Well, thank you very much for your time here on Joy News Today. But take us through why we have to spend so much on power generation.
Well, power generation is an expensive venture in the first place. The figure you just quoted is just to run our thermal plant, which is just about 40% of Ghana's energy consumption. So we have about 4 or 5 plants that give us up to about 500 megawatts of power. Each plant or each unit of the plant uses about 5,000 barrels of crude oil to generate about 100 megawatts of power. Now, 5,000 barrels of crude oil times $100 is about $500,000. If you're running 5 times that, that's about $2.5 million. That is only on crude oil. You're not talking about the cost of spare parts, the cost of other things that you have to add to that. And most of the things we get for our thermal plants, we get them from foreign countries, and therefore we need to buy them in hard currencies. And especially when the cedi falls, we have to spend a lot of cedis to make sure we can meet that cost.
So how do we get this amount of money? How do we come across this? Because it's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's the work of the VRA. So every month, like I told you, before we had the gas pipeline damage, we were using natural gas from Nigeria, and so crude oil was more supplementary. We used it as and when we have issues with gas supply. And so anytime we got about 400,000 barrels of crude oil as a parcel, we could use it for about 90 days. Now it has changed because there's no gas. That same parcel, we use it in 20 days.
Wow.
Yes.
So now at this point when the West African Gas Company is not sure that it's going to be giving us generating power, what is the VRA doing to mitigate this against this cost?
We have to make sure we move tooth and nail to make sure every 20 days we can come out with about 50 to 60 million US dollars to buy crude oil to run the plant.
How does that look?
Well, you tell me how it looks. It's very, very expensive, but of course it is the challenge on us to be able to do that, and in the interest of the nation. It's a big national issue, and so we made an appeal that everybody that owes the VRA money should make it a point to see it as a big national responsibility, national duty to pay us our money so that we can generate more power.
Okay, Mr. Fletcher, thank you very much for your time. We hope that they put in a lot more to get those monies and give us electricity. So we end the business reports with your smart investment tips.